They walking in, they make threats, they grab items, they walk out knowing that nobody is going to detain them, not just because it's policy, because of this fear. And even if they do get arrested, it's further amplified by the fact that they get arrested, they might spend the night in jail, get a nice meal, and they'll be back again tomorrow. And that gives them that confidence that, oh, I can reoffend.
Welcome back to Closer Look across the Village Media Network, wherever you get your favorite podcast. Follow us on social. And I do want to sound like a broken record, if I can use your line. Sign up at, thank you, at closerlookpodcast.ca. We'll send the episode direct to your inbox.
Yes.
No work on your part.
No work. It's right there, the headline, and you just click and it works.
Boom.
And you know, more and more people are signing up every day. The number grows daily.
If you build it.
Some will come.
So, yes. Some have.
Some have.
Some have looked and
we
said,
don't want
nope.
Some have moved along.
Yeah.
But that's what you know what? I'm going to say multiple people who get the email are telling me they enjoy the show. So
yes.
Maybe the people, whatever that was them sending another note.
Another subscriber.
Congratulations.
Yeah. I don't know if that was my phone.
It was probably your phone. Anyway.
I think I'm off.
We've been canceled.
See, that's why Derek runs this thing. So it was your laptop. He just flipped the lid down.
Was it my laptop?
Yeah.
Why would I never even heard my laptop make a noise like that?
It's not used to working so hard.
No, it's not.
All right. Today's serious topic, retail theft in the province is reaching epic proportions.
In the country, actually. Yeah,
yes,
you're right.
Yes,
you're right. Yeah. I mean, this is an issue. We kind of see it in the news every day. We hear about stores just at their wits' end dealing with shoplifters, dealing with even beyond shoplifters, like real criminal organized groups, multiple people going in there. And we always knew that theft from stores cost a certain amount of money. What do they call? There's a term for it. It's off the top of my head.
Do you want me to
shrink? It's called shrink, right? It's their law, right? Their law, and it's like doubled in the last 5 years for the amount of the things being lost to theft. And so we're going to speak to an expert about that today.
We are, and what I can't get over, and you and I just talked about this before we got in here, the brazenness of the thief. I mean, it used to be that they'd walk in and just kind of tuck some. Now they just walk in, grab stuff off the shelf, and walk right out.
100%. And we're going to talk about this today, but we know people who work in retail who've been told, just let it go.
Yep.
Don't even bother.
It's not worth
your it's not worth your safety and or the hassle.
All right. Well, the Retail Council of Canada is out with a brand new report. Let's get into it. The Retail Council of Canada has just come out with a brand new report that highlights retail crime in Canada and the impact it's having not only on business but also on communities and safety in general. Here to talk about the report is Rui Rodriguez, who heads up loss prevention and risk management at the Retail Council of Canada. Rui, welcome to Closer Look, and thanks for joining us tonight. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Rui, the new report says retail crime in Canada has become more violent, more organized, and more costly than ever before. Just how bad has it gotten?
Yes, so I'll take that in three parts. So costly. Last comparison we did was it was in 2018, where we did a survey to measure retail crime, and based on respondents at that point, retail losses was estimated at about $5 billion. The most recent report, as you know, states it's 9.1 billion. Now that's based on responses from those for the survey. I actually believe it's a little higher than that. So it's doubled in almost 5 years. So losses, certainly a concern. And then, of course, there's the economic impact that as those losses occur and these goods are being stolen and resold through resale markets, online marketplaces, that's taxpayer dollars not being collected. Mm-hmm. So it does have quite a large economic effect, as well as retail prices and how those shift. So that's a concern. The violence and the prolific nature and organized crime is probably the biggest concern. Post-COVID, we saw this impact and effect of people becoming more brazen when they commit their crimes, more violent in nature. We've seen our population of unhoused individuals go up, people dealing with mental health, drug addictions, and so forth in many communities across Canada. So when you put all this together, coupled with the fact that coming out of COVID, the prosecutions of these type of individuals and the perception that retail crime is victimless crime, it's property crime, it really doesn't have a victim. We struggled judicially and from a court's perspective to hold these people to account. Now, we're not talking about the first-time offender. We're talking about somebody who makes a living of this, a professional thief, and or those that are chronically stealing and are violent in the nature when they steal. We've seen a massive increase of violence, 300% as reported by retailers. We've seen much more utilization of weapons. It's a daily occurrence that we hear about weapons being used in retail, whether it's bear spray, knives, some case guns. 5 years ago, that might be reported once every few months. It's a daily occurrence. And yet retail criminals, these individuals perpetuate these crimes. Typically, these matters are pled down to just the theft rather than the robbery or other involved because it's easier to plead down a matter. So you have these serious offenders that are perceived to be just shoplifters, where reality is they're violent individuals. They are running retail crime enterprises, organizations. They're having a massive impact. And from a community perspective, if you think about the young person or person in general working in retail who signed up to have a fun job, maybe it's their first job, certainly didn't sign up to have somebody pull a knife or bear spray on them or have somebody spit on them, it's having a massive impact on the worker. We have members who report a much higher degree of people off on leave as a result of a violent incident that could have been either physical or verbal in a retail environment. In addition, you've seen retailers, some that have closed up their locations in these more prone areas for crime, which creates an effect. You have a vacant location that's boarded up with graffiti and all, and it creates and invites a criminal element, and or potentially a retailer that was supporting that market with goods that is no longer there. So it has a great effect. Our criminal system hasn't modified enough to deal with it. We absolutely, our criminal code, the legislation that is in place, bail reform, we need changes. Today, it's a revolving door. A criminal in retail gets arrested, they're released same day or next day, mostly same day, and they're back reoffending. Bail reform was amended last year with Bill C-48 coming out in January, where it does call for amendments where those individuals involved in violence and or weapons, they now have to have a burden of proof to show cause why they should be released. Yet we still see way too often those individuals that are repeat prolific offenders involved in violence are still being released same day or next day. So we don't even see the legislation that is currently in place being used to the best that it can. Hence, my opinion, and I think it's shared, that we need much more prescriptive sentencing guidelines for criminals so that it's not left to chance. When somebody is offended multiple times, there should be a graduated sentencing for punishment. And it doesn't have to be just incarceration, but whether it's a no-go back to that retailer, there's different cities doing electronic monitoring with anklets and different natures. But we need to prevent these criminals from reoffending. And if they truly can't be a good standing citizen, incarceration may be that choice. But that's where I believe now we're at the precipice of making sure we're tougher on crime. And this isn't perceived as shoplifters who aren't causing any harm to anyone. We need to make sure the perception is real, that there's an element of retail crime that has prolific criminals that are having a massive impact on our communities, our people, and they should be not lumped in with the opportunistic thief who steals an item for the first time.
Yeah, it's a good point. When you think of the why, is that's the major reason, the fact that it seems to be easier, the punishments are severe, they're getting out the same day. Are there other reasons of the why, Rui, that's driving this?
Yeah, supply and demand is certainly one of them. Let's face it, as public citizens, we look for a deal, and the online marketplace and the ability to go directly from market to social media to sell goods and reselling of goods is also made it very easy for organized criminals to hide behind it. The fact that we have a lot more individuals who can be leveraged for it. So if I'm an enterprise that's criminal and I know that there are consumers out there that are willing to buy goods off me online and I can set up a platform that looks legitimate, when there's the demand for that product and I can send somebody to steal those goods from me and then ship them to their door using any one number of last mile couriers, as a criminal, I can hide. So there's also that element where organized criminals used to take more risks. They had to go in and steal themselves and could get caught. Now they're using other people to steal for them, and they can sell it through these online marketplaces and never have to meet the individual, so they feel safer. And when the consequences to those actions appear to be non-existent, I think the combination of supply and demand, as well as the lack of consequences, just gives people confidence to do it.
Ruby, you talk to retailers all the time. Any anecdotes that you can share with us?
Yeah, listen, generally, most retailers, and if not all, the galvanizing concern is their people, their customers. The fact that from a safety and security of the employees, their staff, and customers coming into the store, they want to work together on changing that to make sure people feel safe in a retail environment. I think there's a lot of great work that is being done across the country. Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, Winnipeg is a great story. Starting to see some great collaboration in Ontario where law enforcement and retailers are coming together to make sure people feel safe. So I think that is a big story for retail. Retail is not an unsafe environment. We have a crime issue, but people are working hard to try to minimize and impact it. But we need more from a government perspective. The other is the losses. And, you know, when people say, well, there's a lot of big retailers with deep pockets who make a lot of money. Well, here's my answer. I think if you're a retailer and you operate your business well, you should make money. That's why you get into business. So when people get criticized for making money, I think that's the wrong approach. Because what I see is those same retailers at the table with their colleagues and with law enforcement wanting to make an impact and taking the communities back. They are all there at the table saying, we are willing to work on solutions. What else can we do? And retailers, by and large, over the last 4 years have made significant investments in how they merchandise, how they retail, whether it's changing their storefronts, realigning the ins and outs of their stores, hiring more people on the floor. The use of guard services across this country has gone up probably tenfold.
Yes.
Right?
You see them everywhere.
I never used to see them.
Yeah.
No, and you know, that's to protect primarily your people, right? You want to send an assurance to your staff that you have someone there to protect you. In some cases, they're there to arrest the bad guys, but a lot of retailers are hands off. So there's the element of deterrence and protection, but it's that utilization. So retailers continue to make significant investments at their cost. These aren't funded by government to protect their people, their premises, and their products. And they want to see government and the judicial system step in and do as much as they can to start to impact recidivism, to reduce the amount of offending and take a more firm, direct approach on the criminals that deserve it, not the first-time offenders.
And Rui, there's been a real shift in that regard, right? I mean, it used to be years ago, you know, a thief would walk into a store in a mall and steal something and run out, and 17 staff would chase them down the hallways of the mall. Now that just doesn't happen. They're told, stand down and just let them go. Yeah,
so it's a complex story. Some retailers still apprehend, but when you're doing that today, you have to be very prepared for the risks that brings. The general retail worker is not prepared for that. Some of the LP, loss prevention, asset protection, even guards, there's an additional training because today you're dealing with individuals that could be under the influence. They could be dealing with mental health issues, and the symptoms are the same. And you need to be able to recognize that and have empathy for those individuals that may not be aware of what they're doing, and a firm touch for those who are very aware and are violent. And when you do decide to go hands-on, you don't know what that person is going to do. When we see higher utilization of weapons, you know, somebody pulling out a needle out of their pocket. So that whole hands-on approach has to be treated much more carefully because the risk has gone up when you are and the criminals know that. So to your point, where a criminal might before run in, and we call it a grab and run, grab items, run out. And a lot of times most companies don't allow you to chase, but you could try to detain the individual. Whereas now we see evidence of individuals just walking in. They walk in, they make threats, they grab items, they walk out knowing that nobody is going to detain them. Not just because it's policy, because of this fear. And even if they do get arrested, it's further amplified by the fact that they get arrested, they might spend a night in jail, get a nice meal, and they'll be back again tomorrow. And that gives them that confidence that, oh, I can reoffend. And the consequences weren't that bad. And, that is not a good recipe right now. So even as retailers contemplate how to engage, as I said, they made a lot of investments to try to protect themselves. But when it's about engaging, if you're going to apprehend an individual and take that risk, you want to know that on the other side, our prosecutions, our justice, our laws are going to be utilized to hold that criminal in place, and they're not coming right back to reoffend.
Because for sure we've seen cases in a lot of our communities where the people show up at the same store the same day or the next day. Where you talked about, your report goes into great detail about how much retailers are struggling to contain these crime levels, right? They're limiting store hours, they're locking high-priced items, they're even closing locations in certain areas. Is there sort of a horror story that sticks out to you? You don't have to name names what the business is, but an example of a business that really epitomizes the struggle that they're all facing?
Yeah, I think some are more prone to activity than others. And, if I lump it in without speaking, in the grocery world, you have a lot of volume within. So from a accessibility, it's not just grocery. A lot of grocers have apparel, they have pharmacy. So from a volume perspective, an organized criminal can get a lot within that. So obviously there's that proneness to that. And then there's organizations that may have less of an obvious defense that become more of a target, right? Because they don't necessarily have the means to employ guards and continue to spend on all that. So the retail sector, I think it's a very diversified lens. As far as horror stories, there's been examples, and they've been in the media where, individual who clearly is not in his right mind, based on the example, goes into a retail location, sets some items on fire to create a distraction tactic, because they think if they do that, that's going to be the focus while they steal. Meanwhile, they burn down a location and there's lives at risk. And when you think about that, the individual may not have done it with the intent of causing harm of life. Thought this is funny, it's a distraction tactic, but it's the severity of what impact that has. And if that happens to be a retailer that is a focus of that community, that supplies that community, and they need to now repair or reopen, or potentially decide, do we even do that? There's a backfill that is gone from that community. So what may start out as some person, again, ill-intended for sure, but does something that they think, I'm just going to create a distraction here while I do this, can have a fairly large impact. And then, there's a number of incidents where we've had several security officers in the last couple of years who've died in the retail environment as a result of retail criminal incidents. That shouldn't be happening, right? That should not be happening in a retail environment.
Rui, the report concludes that better coordination is needed between retailers, law enforcement, and government. Where's the biggest gap right now, and what would you like to see change first?
Yeah, and I don't want to blame anyone, although I'll call our government to task. The collaboration with law enforcement is in good place. Retail Council of Canada hosts a national task force every month, and it is open to everyone. We started it 3.5 years ago. We have over 34 law enforcement agencies across the country and retailers that collaborate on projects, whether it's targeted enforcement, sharing intel, and working together on solutions. So I'd say that collaboration with police and retailers can continue to improve, and we certainly want to advocate with the Canadian Association of Chiefs of Police to make sure all police agencies are connecting and networking with the retail community. Justice, we've seen some growth in the Crown's areas as far as Winnipeg, again, a perfect example where we have the executive director of prosecution at a provincial level, as well as a supervisor in Winnipeg who are part of our working group, therefore creates that connection that when they see the same individuals, they know it, right? As part of being that collective, they start to see and build the expertise of, we know who those offenders are, so it creates great connection. So I think where the gap is and where we start to now move forward to is at a provincial and more federal level, looking at legislative changes, criminal code amendments, and clarity in language on making sure that these type of crimes, retail or either, that are naturally perceived as low-level crimes, that we look at it from the criminal lens, not the type of incident. Rather than shoplifting, we need to look at it from what is the nature of that criminal and their past, and the legislation needs to support that. So more prescriptive, because frankly, it can be a bit ambiguous the way we look at things. And just quick example, theft over and theft under $5,000 does not really help a crown with indictable offenses for the type of criminal we're talking about. A violent, prolific offender who steals $100 every day would be pled out because they fall under theft under, if you use that as an example, versus a criminal who reoffends and is a recidivist who's hit a certain threshold falls into a different pool. And that's what I think we need to define more. And there should be very prescriptive actions as far as what the dispositions or consequences are. And if they fail based on demonstrating you didn't stay away or you breached your contract, then it needs to continue to escalate in consequence versus the same old, we're going to let you go, promise to appear at court. We may never see that date because of Jordan limits, and the individual is free to reoffend. Just doesn't work. It's
interesting. That's the point I hadn't thought of. I appreciate that. Rui, can you speak to the impact all this has on prices of goods at stores? I mean, are prices by default have to go up because of the amount of money that retailers are losing?
Yeah, and it's a complex question. I don't know that one directly affects the other, but it has an impact for sure. Losses, of course, will have an impact on price. I think also when you think about the retail market and how competitive it is, if I have a toothpaste, Colgate toothpaste, and it normally sells for $4, I can't sell it for $6 just to try to make up my losses because consumer will go where it's $4. So I think market-wise certainly has an impact 100%. I don't think there's the opportunity for somebody to recover their losses by playing with their individual prices because you'd price yourself out of the market and you've got the online market that you have to compete with. But it does absolutely have an impact, and we have a campaign that we collaborate on with Toronto Crime Stoppers. It's called It Costs Us All. There's a website called It Costs Us All with a lot of different information, which is really about educating the consumer on the impact it does have, because eventually it does cost us all. And the market has to move up in order to not just recover the losses of goods, but it's all the extra expenses, right? If you're spending a ton more money on protecting yourself, if your insurance is now declining your insurance claims because of breakage, glass breakage, and that because you've put in too many claims, if you're spending more money on guards, that extra labor, at some point, your P&L, if you're in the red, you're not going to survive. So retailers got to make up enough revenue and enough profit in order to do all these things. So if we can curb this, where retailers not having to take so much of these other additional expenses, I'm sure that would also have an impact.
Rui, before we let you go, anything else about the report you'd like to add or the situation itself that retailers find themselves in?
Yeah, so one, I would say it's the public education. I think it's important that the general public understand that retail crime is not a victimless crime. Be educated. Two, be aware of where you're buying your goods. Yes, it's great to buy stuff online, but if the deal is too good to be true, likely is not. $1,000 drill and a brand new package that you're paying $100 for likely isn't somebody who's reselling it because they got too many gifts. So be aware of where. Don't support organized retail crime because it is supply and demand. And the last would be collective. Speak to your MP, speak to your officials, be part of the message to make sure that we're working collectively in Canada to be tougher on crime. And, I'm not talking militant. I'm just talking as a collective. We need to make it a focus to take our communities back while dealing with this complex issue of unhoused individuals that are falling into the mix. It's a complex issue, and everybody should be aware and trying to do their part to help.
All right, there's Louis Rodriguez, heads up loss prevention and risk management at the Retail Council of Canada. Rui, appreciate your time tonight. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen.
It's true what they say. Some things are worth the wait, and goodness knows we waited a bit to get Rui.
Yeah, Rui's a very busy guy.
He is.
And he has a lot on the go. This is an issue that's impacting communities all across the country, and
Indeed.
This report was a big deal. But it is funny, just some behind the scenes stuff. We had Rui actually canceled 2 other times on us because of things that came up, and that happens. It's on the show.
Of course, it happens.
But I did make a joke with him and say, Rui, the 2 prime ministers came on the show. They arrived right on schedule, and you canceled tonight. You got a kick out of that. But really smart guy and a really important issue because. We see it in all the communities that we cover.
We absolutely do.
Retail crime has become an issue, as he alluded to. Part of it is the ongoing opioid emergency we're dealing with, the homelessness crisis we're facing in this province. People are struggling, the cost of living. But he's right in the sense there's also these organized groups that this is their bread and butter. This is what they do.
Yeah.
They go in, they steal high-priced items, and within an hour they're for sale on some secondary marketplace. There's big bucks to be made here, and we know if we know anything about organized crime is if there is a dollar to be made, they will get involved.
Absolutely.
And so he's seen that as well. And I do, he's right when he talked about, people see a big box store, a big chain, and they don't have any sympathy for these stores. They think, oh, that is a victimless crime, right? And the reality is this is impacting a lot of small business owners too. Just the guy who owns the couple who owns the store on the corner, who owns an electronics store in town, or a craft boutique in town. I mean, this is these people are impacted too. So he's right. It's not a victimless crime.
So a couple things. Buyer beware, obviously, goes without saying. And if the deal sounds too good to be true, right? And he brought that up.
It likely is.
Yeah. Okay. Good stuff. Rui Rodriguez from the Retail Council of Canada. All right. That's it for us tonight. Follow us on social. Closer Look, podcast.ca if you'd like to sign up for our newsletter. We'll send you episodes each and every day, 6 days a week. Happy to do so. For Michael Friscolanti, our editor-in-chief here at Village Media, I'm Scott Sexsmith. Thanks for watching Closer Look. Let's do it again tomorrow night, 7 o'clock, right here. Have a good night.
Frisco and Scott's Wardrobe provided in part by Moores, Sault Ste. Marie.